meeting of Herefordshire Council on the 23rd of May 2025. Can I remind everybody that this webcast of this meeting is taking place, so stay in your allocated place. I'll remind everyone that the filming, photography and recording of the meeting is permitted, providing it does not disrupt the business of the meeting. If there is anybody in particular who does not wish to be photographed or filmed, can they please indicate now so that we are aware? And I would remind all councillors that, of course, your contributions are all timed to a very strict level, and you will be given notice of that. I will begin with the first item, and I will hand over to the Vice Chair to conduct the first item.
Thank you. Oh, the power of this seat. I feel like the gavel. I'd like to call for nominations to the office of Chairperson of the Council.
I'd like to propose Roger Phillips.
Thank you. Any others at all? I have a seconder for that. I've got Councillor. Thank you. Please, would you like to speak on your recommendation?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Vice Chair. Roger is one of our most experienced councillors, having first been elected as a councillor in 1997. For context, I was just 3 years old. He has just completed his 28th year as a councillor, and throughout that time, he has served as a cabinet support member and leader between 2003 and 2011. It is an understatement to say that he's very committed to Herefordshire and local government, and his external roles with Hereford and Worcester Fire Service as chair of the Rural Services Network and various roles with local government pensions and government advisory boards show just how determined he is to represent his county well. If I had just one critique, Roger, it's this. For God's sake, slow down. You're making us all look bad. It's an absolute honour to propose you as chairperson, and I could not think of anyone I would be prouder to have represent this council or Herefordshire.
So in that case, we'll move to the vote. All in favour? I think that's unanimous. Congratulations, Chair.
I, Roger James Phillips, having been elected to the office of Chair of Herefordshire Council, declare that I will take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. Thank you, colleagues, for thank you, Dan, for those kind words, and thank you for the re-election. I didn't look to see if it was unanimous, well, not, but I'm sure it was. It is a great honour to serve. What? It is a great honour to serve, and as someone who's born and bred in the county, I can't tell you how it's such an honour and a pleasure. I'm so proud of Herefordshire, as I'm sure all of you are, and the tremendous work that is done in our communities in the voluntary and community sector, and also very proud of the work that our staff do as well. I know there will always be criticisms and always comments, but there are an awful lot of dedicated staff and we are very grateful to them for delivering the services in what is increasingly a very challenging time. So my thanks to you all very much. Item 2 is now the election of Vice Chair. It would be my pleasure from the Chair to propose my Vice Chairman, Councillor Steph Simmons. Steph adds that additional gravitas and to the role, is very, very easy and accommodating to deputise for me at many times, and I'm very grateful to her for the way that she carries that role out, and I think you will all agree with me that she has the right status and demure to carry out the office with dignity and respect. So I'd like to propose Steph. Do I have a seconder? Yes, I have a second. Yes, I've got Councillor Perry. Did you want to say anything? No. Oh, well, it's all been said with acclamation. Can I take a vote, please, all for Vice Chairman? That 2 is unanimous. Thank you very much, and congratulations, Steph. And a declaration.
I, Councillor Steph Simmons, having been elected to the office of Vice Chairperson of Herefordshire Council, declare that I will take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability.
Thank you, Steph.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the nomination, and thank you everybody for the vote. It's a real privilege to be able to work with Roger on the very few times he asked me to deputise for him.
As in, don't worry, there's one or two things I can pass over. Right. Item 3 is apologies for absence. I've got apologies recorded for Councillor Bolter and Councillor Dykes. Are there any more? I don't think there are. I think we're all present otherwise. Item 4 is the declarations of interest. I'm here to receive any declarations of interest. Are there any? Pretty straightforward agenda. So therefore we'll move on to agenda item 5, which is the minutes of the previous meeting of the 7th of March, from pages 11 to 20 to 32. Are you in agreement that those are an accurate record of the minutes? All those in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? No abstentions. Thank you very much indeed. We then go to the chairperson and chief executive's announcements. These are for noting. Can I just draw your attention, particularly my report, to the cherry tree project with Japan? As you can see, we are apparently a bit low on numbers in Herefordshire. So if you are working with your communities and know anywhere that can actually plant these trees, that would be very welcome. And of course, they are supplied free of charge, but you do have to order them well in advance. So thank you for that. Chief Executive, have you anything to add?
Nothing further from me, Chairman, this morning.
Thank you. We'll move on then to item 7, which is the election of Leader of the Council. I call on nominations for the post of Leader of the Council. Councillor Swindlehurst.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to nominate Councillor Jonathan Lester for Leader of the Council. Would you like me to speak now?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Jonathan never ceases to impress me. He's intelligent, collegiate and creative and has a deep-seated love of Herefordshire. He has a sharp focus and attention to detail, but is also able to step back and see the big picture with clarity, and that's an unusual combination. Since 2023, the Council's finances have been strengthened. Some of the decisions have been very difficult, and at times like that, it's easy for morale to take a hit. But Jonathan has done what needed to be done with compassion and tempered it with a sense of optimism and greater purpose. It's worth noting that the budget this year was not only balanced, but remarkably was also supported by all councillors, with only one exception. And this speaks to Jonathan's collegiate approach, and to be fair, to the willingness of opposition councillors to set aside political differences and come together for the general good. As we all know, the important thing is to get the basics right, but Jonathan also encourages bold decisions when they're called for. He's determined to deliver on promises, a record investment in roads and drainage that we can now see making a difference for all our residents. He's engaged with parish and town councils and all Herefordshire Council staff to create a Team Herefordshire approach and improve service delivery at all levels. According to Councillor Gandy, he is the most eccentric leader she has ever known. For John Stuart Mill, eccentricity is proportional to mental vigour and moral courage. I like eccentricity. It's the symptom of independent thought, of imagination and creativity. What is deeply unusual is to find it alongside efficiency, sensible pragmatism and sound judgment. Jonathan is a leader who is all these things: a poet, a musician, a thinker, a listener, a person of judgment and reflection, modest and hardworking. It only remains for me to ask for your support in re-electing Jonathan Lester as the Leader of the Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Yes, Councillor Durkin. Do you want to speak now, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, it's all been said, really. I think that Jonathan remains an inspiring councillor and leader, leading by example, I must say, and especially with the Parish Summit Initiative, which is now coming back into being, that is demonstrating for me leadership and a collegiate approach. So I would fully endorse, as a seconder, Councillor Lester as leader. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? No. Therefore, I will put the proposal that Councillor Jonathan Lester be leader of the council. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? The majority has it. Congratulations, Councillor Lester. Now, we now move on to agenda item 8, which is the annual review of the effectiveness of the scrutiny review, which are in your report on pages 39 to 62. There are 3 recommendations as set out on page 10 of those reports. Are there any amendments to those proposals? Councillor Harvey.
Yes, I would. Are we going to be taking these one at a time and debating
Yes.
them?
That's. I was trying to establish if there were any amendments, and then obviously we will discuss. We will take the amendment first on that particular, and then we will then move back because I understand that A and C probably will have are content. But we'll deal with your amendment first.
Yes, well, I'm not in agreement with all of the recommendations that are proposed in the scrutiny review report, and therefore would be wishing to not wishing to agree its contents. If we were simply receiving and noting that, and then dealing with the recommendations within it separately, then I would be more content with that. I think it's concerning that, given the evidence contained within the report, that the recommendation is to continue with 5 scrutiny committees, when the evidence in that section of the report makes it pretty clear that for a council of this size, covering a population that it does, we have an overblown and bloated scrutiny, and so I'm certainly wanting to debate and make an alternative recommendation on that item. And I think also it's concerning that the recommendations on public questions are, and particularly the way those are worded, seek to restrict public engagement in the scrutiny process through the way that questions are handled. So I'd also wish to have amendments submitted on those recommendations.
Okay. Well, first of all, can I propose formally propose the recommendations so that we can then launch into the debate? Councillor Lester, will you second?
Yes, I'm happy to second, Chair, but as a point of order, we seem to have started the debate
Yes.
without the 3-minute clock.
Yeah, that was my fault because I was seeking to know if there was going to be amendments, and having sought that there were going to be amendments, we have some idea what those amendments are going to be. So, normally we would discuss the recommendations that are there, but are you happy and content we go straight into the amendment and have that debate about that? Agreed? So, Councillor Harvey, can you move your amendments and tell us what they are, please?
Well, I'd be amending the recommendation to retain the 5-committee structure and be suggesting that the number of committees is reduced certainly by at least 1 to 4. I'm not proposing that in the room here we thrash out the detail of how the responsibilities of this council are set against those reduced number of committees, but I think 5 committees it's clear that both the Conservative and the Liberal groups struggle to populate the seats across the 5 committees, with their members most frequently failing to attend, failing to apologise, and failing to have substitutes provided, which weakens the committee's operation when they sit and consider matters. And those members also seem to struggle to attend the preparation meetings. So reducing the number of committees and therefore the number of seats to be populated would, I feel, enable councillors to, a reduced number of councillors to maybe do a better job. I'm not suggesting in any way that reducing the number of committees reduces the importance of scrutiny as a function. I'm concerned about scrutiny being strong. And equally, are you wanting me to cover the point about public questions also in the same 3 minutes?
Yes, please, because it's an amendment to all three.
Okay, well, in that case, I think that the seeking to restrict the public questions in the way that the 3 recommendations in that section of the report are worded is unfortunate and inappropriate, and the reasons given are it's a shame that the sensible suggestions that were made by the cross-party working group walking alongside this have not been taken more into account during the review process. My feeling is that questions should be, if they are going to be altered at all, and I'm in 2 minds about that they should be focused on the agenda items for each particular committee meeting, so that the questions are relevant to the business of the committee when it sits, and that maximises the opportunity for the officers present to be able to provide answers in the room, and indeed cabinet members to provide answers in the room. But at the moment I'm undecided as to whether to actually support a restriction of public questions entirely.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Crockett, do you want to speak now or later?
I'll speak now, please, Chair.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Harvey. I've just been thrown in at this, really, because I have comments about this this item. The first comment I would like to say is regarding the key consideration number 6. The evidence gathered for the review included a survey of elected members and officers involved in scrutiny. I would suggest that all 53 elected members are included in these decisions, and I was really disappointed to see that only 29 had replied to the survey online. You know, we are responsible to the public.
Yeah. Do you want to speak to the proposed amendments as well, please?
I agree with those proposals that Councillor Harvey has submitted.
Thank you, Councillor Crockett. Very well. Can we debate the motion, the amendment, sorry, that's been put before us? Councillor Hitchener.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make comments on the issue of questions from members of the public. I think we should be very cautious about changing the current arrangements over the asking of questions by members of the public. We are here to represent residents. Their voices should be heard, and any suggestion that those voices should not be heard should be considered very carefully. The report focuses on questions raised in the area of our work with children, an area where the Council has been seriously deficient for many, many years, although I'm pleased to say it is on the road to improvement. The Council should be aware of issues in that area many, many years ago and acted on those concerns. Maybe had the public felt encouraged to ask more questions earlier, fewer lives would have been harmed. By saying this, I'm not criticising the public, but we might want to ask ourselves why it took 3 damning court judgments before proper attention was paid. The public should be encouraged to come forward without fear. Stifling questions from members of the public in an arena, in any arena, does not sit comfortably with me. The report refers to issues raised by being a source of conflict or tension between elected members and officers. The inference is that this is a bad thing. My response is that this is often good, not bad. Surely we are not here to make life as easy as possible for fellow councillors, for the administration and offices. I think the electorate would question whether avoiding that tension is a good reason for change. During the administration that I led, we were aware of the tensions caused. It was often uncomfortable, but we felt that given the hurt clearly felt by the individuals, we should accept this discomfort. True, my experience was at council meetings rather than scrutiny, but why should the approach be any different? My final point is that the comments on the making of questions was not part of the original brief and is based on discussions between officers and councillors. There does not seem to have been any consultation with the electorate on this important issue. The Constitution states at Article 2612, in the context of scrutiny, that the public can be involved by asking questions on any matter that is the function of the committee. Any qualification to that constitutional right needs very good and sound justification. I currently do not think there is sufficient justification, but will listen as this debate unfolds. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Titchener. Councillor Driscoll.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to speak in favour of the recommendations of the Scrutiny Officer, and I'd like to thank the Scrutiny Officer for what is a detailed and thoughtful report that has and will continue to, well, I believe will have significant impact upon the way all the committees do business in future years. I'd also like to thank all of the members of the Connected Communities Scrutiny Committee for their work over the past 12 months. And what I feel is we've had an extremely busy and helpful year, I think, and we've made some important recommendations to Cabinet that I know have been listened to. I wanted to highlight one paragraph from the Scrutiny Officer's report that I think is worth considering. Herefordshire Council has a significant programme of business in several key areas. Substantial new infrastructure proposals in roads, active travel and rail, and housing development in the county are being progressed. Continuing improvements being required to children's services. There also remains significant environmental concern around the health of our local rivers and waterways. Additionally, ongoing budgetary pressures will require careful management and continued oversight within a climate of real terms government funding, all of which sit within a vision of delivering the best for Herefordshire in everything we do. The Scrutiny Officer recognises we have a significant work programme lined up over the next 12 months. I'm extremely excited by the work programme we've got within our committee, and I think with everything this council is planning to do, we require significant scrutiny of the work of council and the current structure with the planned changes, looking at delivering more through task and finish groups, because we're not doing, it isn't ideal the way it works at the moment. There are some very good and reasoned suggestions for how we might be able to work more efficiently in the future. I believe this report provides the necessary infrastructure and recommendations for us to scrutinise the work of this council better moving forward, and I strongly recommend that this council supports the report of the Scrutiny Officer. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Stark, Councillor Fagan, and then Councillor Kenyon. Councillor Stark.
Thank you, Chair. I don't think it's a question of numbers in terms of the scrutiny structure. I think it's a question of what areas we feel we have to scrutinise. I'd like to remind this Council that we declared a climate emergency in 2019, and we added to that climate emergency by including ecology in 2020. We then, through the rethinking governance work, and through a suggestion from me to have a policy committee on environment, that we came up with a very considered view that we should separate the General Scrutiny Committee, which was too wide then and too shallow because it wasn't getting underneath the real issues that we were trying to deal with in this council, to split it. And I've seen no evidence, having been chair of Environment Sustainable Scrutiny Committee, that was short of topics on my side. If anything, there's times when I would like to do more. So I don't want to get into a numbers game here, because I think that's missing the point. Because if you decide to take away one committee, you then have the difficult task of what area do you no longer scrutinise to the effect that we've been scrutinising up to now. That cannot possibly be in the area of climate change, because that would send the wrong message to everybody out there. So I'm quite happy with this, with the proposals from the Scrutiny Officer, and I think we should stay with the 5 committee structure we have at the moment as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Fagan.
Thank you, Chair. We all want to have good scrutiny in the council. I think we can agree on that. the issue that I would like to raise is about the public questions. So the concern that I've had as chair of the Children's Scrutiny Committee is around the supplementary questions and the risk that a child or a family or a worker will be exposed through those supplementary questions inadvertently, or potentially deliberately, but actually the opportunity to stop that is very limited within the meeting, and as the meetings are streamed live, there is a huge risk to primarily the children involved, and that is our responsibility as councillors, is to make sure that children are protected. So that is my reservation around the current situation with the public questions and the supplementaries for children and young people scrutiny. Saying that, I don't believe that we should curb the ability of the public to engage in the democratic process, but currently it feels like the Children and Young People Scrutiny Committee is a sort of messenger between the cabinet member and the Director of Children's Services, who generally those two answer the questions, and it would be good to try and resolve that. So there are elements of these proposals that I support, and there are elements that I'm sort of not sure about, but what I know is that we want to be able to allow the scrutiny committees to deliver on their work and to get on with the job of actually holding the council to account, making sure that we can add value, and making sure that we have a robust scrutiny process. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kenyon.
Thank you, Chairman. I've been feverishly scribbling stuff down, so it's going to come across as a scattergun approach. As per normal, no change there. First of all, to speak very briefly to the proposal of the amendment, and my experiences have been on the scrutiny committee and leaving it because it was a waste of my time, and I'm sad to say that. But I do see what's been done by the scrutiny officer as a good way of moving things forward. So, when I was on the scrutiny committee, there were meetings for meetings. They were provisional meetings to work out what questions they're going to ask in a meeting. That's ridiculous. And I said so at the time, and I still think that's a waste of time and ineffective. Proportionality on committees. Why have we got that? If we got someone within this council who's an expert in it or knows about it, who's got an interest in it, get him in there, okay? Because proportionality within scrutiny, I think, is wrong. But that's how we do things here. The last councillor to speak said we're here to hold the council to account. And we are the council. We're here to work with the council. The cabinet member, the officers, aren't our enemies. So what we should be doing is working ways out where we can support them better. The other thing I found on a scrutiny committee, we scrutinised other organisations' reports, which have already been scrutinised by their own organisation. A complete waste of time of those scrutiny committees. What we should be doing is deep diving into issues within this council, and there are plenty, and they're being worked on at the moment. They're not shouted about in scrutiny committees. There's a hell of a lot of work that goes on within the cabinet members and within this council to improve what we do. Remember, we're all here to serve the people we represent. So I wish scrutiny was better, because I would sit on it full-heartedly and throw myself into it. And I'd like to see these changes implemented. So I'm not going to speak much more about this, other than to say I fully support the scrutiny officer's recommendations, and I really hope they work, and I look forward to working on scrutiny going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor James, and at this stage, apart from Councillor Proctor and Councillor Highfield. Councillor James.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, we're now at a point past the halfway time of our terms in office. We also have the fact that we have the Boundary Commission about to produce a report and recommendations which could, I hope not, structurally change the council and its membership and the degree of membership. In all the years I've been a councillor, I get tired to death with members wanting to change the structures all the time. When they've got nothing better to do, they'll say, well, we need to restructure the council. It's gone on and on and on. You know, moving the deck chairs will make a difference. No, it's what we actually decide and what we actually do that matters in the end, not as I say, moving the deck chairs. So, you know, I agree with what Councillor Fagan said about scrutiny, the fact that, about, you know, and it's especially relevant in the children's services, children's scrutiny, the, you know, finding that you feel that you're a post box for the actual decision makers. The question should go to the decision makers, and that's the important element. But to be changing the structure of the council at this particular time, when, well, by the time it actually takes place, and even the proposer of the amendments actually says we can't do it here, it'll have to go back and do it again. And, you know, we may find ourselves only months away by the time it's finally resolved from actually being disposed of at the next election. So, and it may be a different council in size and structure. So why do we do it at this particular point? I mean, I think the increase in the emphasis on the working groups is important, and it should have been always along that, but that doesn't need a change of the structure of the scrutiny function. So I wholeheartedly support the recommendation that exists in the paper.
Councillor Proctor.
Thank you. I think Councillor Harvey has put her finger on the two most finely balanced recommendations in the report. In the case of the change of committee numbers, there is a lot of evidence in the report that suggests that we have more scrutiny committees than might be expected for a council of our size. But there's also a discussion about the fact that the way that we go about scrutiny is perhaps not using the full talents of the diversity of membership that we have here, and I'm persuaded by that argument that, and I think all scrutiny chairs are persuaded by the argument that by having fewer formal public meetings and doing more work between committees, we should be able to get more work out of the members of the committees and harness them to their particular interests. And I think for that reason I can't accept that amendment. I think the public questions changes are also very finely balanced, and I think we've heard the arguments on both sides expressed here. I am interested, I wonder if we could have some guidance on how this interacts with the Constitution. So is this recommendation going to change the Constitution? Is it compatible with the Constitution? So just some understanding there. I do think it does seem to make logical sense that if you're asking questions of a committee, it should be about the work of the committee. And for that reason, I don't think I can support that part of the amendment either. And I guess the third thing I would highlight is, so far, this has been a debate between members of the opposition. Scrutiny is a whole part of the governance of the whole council, and I'd very much like to hear from the administration and members of the Conservative group.
Thank you. Monitor, do you want to reply to that?
Yes, the proposed amendment is appropriate. It can happen because it's with regard to saying that any questions to scrutiny should be relevant to the agenda item. So yes, we can change the Constitution if Council so wishes.
Thank you. Councillor Highfield.
Yes, you get a response now, Ben, from a junior member of the Conservative group. I sit on two rather serious scrutiny committees, Environment and Children's Services, and we're certainly not short of work. There is masses to do and more we'd like to do, as Councillor Stark said, but I will refer to Councillor Hitchener's point about the questions from the members of the public. I understand his point, but I believe he's misunderstood the intent of the scrutiny officer's recommendations. There is no intention whatsoever to restrict the ability of members of the public to ask questions and if you like, scrutinise us. It's, I think, intended to make sure they're better directed to get a more direct response. The scrutiny committees are often, as Councillor Fagan said, we're used as a conduit to answer questions that came from Cabinet or from an individual Cabinet member to a questioner through us, because the question was not really suitably directed to a particular scrutiny committee. So the intention is not to limit that. And the only thing I would say is that we have to make sure that when this goes out to the public, we make that quite clear, that we're not restricting the right of the public to contact and question the council. And in that, I don't agree with the amendment, and I do support the scrutiny officer's recommendations.
Thank you. I've now got Councillor Gandy, Councillor Swindlehurst, and Councillor Bartlett. Councillor Gandy.
Thank you. My views on this are that I support the recommendations from the scrutiny officer. The issue, I think it is absolutely imperative that leaders do their very best to ensure that the people that they put onto the scrutiny committee have an interest in the subject that they are being required to be involved with. And to a degree, I agree that proportionality makes that very difficult, and it would be much better if we actually had a system where the people who are really, really interested in adults' social care or children's social care or the environment or whatever have the right to sit on the committees that they are that do that, because you will get a much better debate rather than what we do now, which is proportionality and filling seats in order to get that proportionality. And I've done this ever since, I'm old enough to have been involved with the committee system, and it happened then, and it carried on with scrutiny. And I think that is the one issue. Leaders need to, of all the groups, need to really understand what the backgrounds are of their members, what they did in their previous lives, if they're not now working, what their interests are, and do their very best to try to slot them in to the committees that will actually be the most, make them most proactive. With regards to, and certainly I don't condone committee members not turning up and not having a substitute. That needs to be sorted out by all councillors. With regards to the reduction in the committees, I don't support that. I think the worst thing we could do at a time when we are going through a boundary review is to reduce the number of committees that we've got for scrutiny, because that sends out exactly what I think we don't want to send out, that we are too big, a council that is too big for the size of our county, and that therefore we need to be reduced in numbers. Now that is more likely to affect the towns and the cities than it is the rural areas, and I don't think that is a good thing either. And I think to do it at this particular time, when we are so close to the boundary review, does send out that message that we are a small authority and therefore we should be reduced in number of members. And I don't think anyone in this room would want that to happen.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Swindlehurst, and is it Councillor Rob Williams? Yes, and then I think I've had every... No, Councillor Bartlett didn't want to speak. And Councillor, then, and then I'll bring in Councillor Crockett, then Councillor Lester, and then I'll return to Councillor Harvey. Oh, yeah, yes, she said, yes, sorry. Yeah, Councillor Crockett, you've already spoken. You seconded it, that's right. So, Swindlehurst, Councillor Robert Williams, then Councillor Lester, and then Councillor Harvey, and then we will go for the vote.
Harvey's spoken. She can't speak again. She's the proposed amendment. It's you two that have.
Okay, so, because she's amendment, that's right. It's not the motion. She can't speak again. Okay, right. I've got that right. So Swindlehurst, Williams, and then Lester.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so a couple of reflections. I remember the system that was that we had previously with general overview and scrutiny, which I was vice chair of, and I do concur with Councillor Stark's feeling that actually we do need a separate scrutiny committee for environment. There is a lot to discuss, and I really value the input of that scrutiny committee to the work that I do as cabinet member for the environment, and would be loath to lose that. I'm also one of the changes that happened the last time we did a scrutiny review in the previous administration, and a great deal of work was done on this by Councillor Christy Balderson, was the scrutiny management being an extra layer coming in. But there was a reason for that. It wasn't just a sort of a, let's have another scrutiny committee. It was because there were those things that cut across all scrutinies. And I think in a sense it's reflective of the one council approach, that there are a number of things that run horizontally through the council, and you need a way to examine that that makes sense. And so I think that's inescapable. So kind of I'd be at a loss to know how we would reduce the number of committees without leaving certain areas of council activity out, and I think that would be a loss. In terms of the questions, I think it's worth also remembering that there are numerous other avenues for the public to put questions in, whether at full council or cabinet, or indeed directly to cabinet members. So I think it's very important to properly consider what Councillor Fagan raised as a concern there. It really is something that needs to be taken very seriously, albeit a balanced decision. But I do think that on balance this is the right recommendation, and I support the scrutiny officer's recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams.
I just wanted to spend a moment to think about proportionality, because in like the business sector, you always bring your best people in, not based on numbers. So I just think we need to sort of reflect and think about that, really, that we need to bring our best people on the given subjects rather than, playing the politics game, because it's all for the better of the one council approach. That's it.
Councillor Lester.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for all those comments that made me really think about the issue some more. But if I distill my thinking on the matter down to its basics, do we want more scrutiny or less scrutiny? So if we have 5, we have more scrutiny. If we have 4, we have less scrutiny. I was the chair of a scrutiny committee when it was just general scrutiny, and the work programme was there was too much. And so we just left things out, and things did not get discussed because there wasn't enough time. So if we reduce the amount of scrutiny committees, we will have less scrutiny, and I wouldn't want that, because scrutiny is such an important function, and it needs to double check that we're making the right decisions for Herefordshire. So I can't support the motion for that reason. More scrutiny, please, not less. With regard to questions from members of the public, it's a matter of accountability. And I think that what we should be making absolutely clear here is that questions should go to the person who can adequately answer them, and should go to the person who's accountable for answering that question. Therefore, there is no point in asking a question to a scrutiny chair that really a cabinet member should be answering. So let's be absolutely clear here. This is not an attempt to shut down the questioning process. It's an opportunity to ensure accountability so that the right question goes to the right councillor. Now, I can remember back in 2018, members of the public getting very irate with a scrutiny chair, that the person happens to be in this room, and he wasn't able to answer the question because it wasn't it wasn't an executive, it wasn't a question that he could answer. It was a question for the executive to answer. So I encourage questions, we want accountability, but we must direct those questions to the right person. And I think this report will do that in terms of scrutiny, and I would like to support the officer's recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. If I could have the amendment up, please, on the screen so that you're quite clear. I think we're going to, they are very different, slightly different, so we're going to take the first one first. So that's very clear. That's the exception that all public question. Yes, the first one agrees agree the contents of the green writ and these. Wait a minute, what agrees the content? Yeah, you read that out.
The amendment is to recommendation A, which will read, agrees with the contents of the scrutiny review in Appendix 1, except that all public questions should be focused on the agenda items for each committee, with a view that all questions can be answered by the scrutiny committee chair or the attending cabinet members and officers attending for those items. So that's the amendment to be taken.
So we're not talking about the reduction of 5 to 4 on this occasion. We're talking about. Does everybody understand what that is? Because no. Councillor Harvey, is there anything that you?
Yes. If I may assist, basically it's saying that any question that is going to scrutiny committee must be relevant to the agenda items. Therefore, the officers and or members attending for those agenda items are in a position to be able to answer the questions. So but any public questions going to those scrutiny committees must be relevant to the agenda items.
That's the amendment.
It is, yeah, with regard to public questions.
Chair.
Councillor James.
Just as I understand it, looking at it now, it looks as if it's fleshing out the actual scrutiny officer's recommendation.
Chairman, can I ask why we're removing and the statutory scrutiny officer's recommendations?
Well, this is the amendment that's being proposed. So you could either vote for it or against, but this is the amendment being proposed. And it is lawful and you can vote on it.
Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, my amendment was in two parts. The first one was about the section of the report dealing with the number of scrutiny committees, and the other one was the last section of the report dealing with public questions. And so my amendment was suggesting that it wasn't agreeing with the entire contents of the scrutiny report. It was actually differing on two specific areas of recommendation, the number of committees and the way that public questions are handled. And at the moment, the recommendation is very clearly that public questions are restricted to scrutiny committee matters that can be answered directly by the committee chair or the scrutiny officer. It is not for the scrutiny chair to answer questions. It is for the scrutiny chair to receive questions and to see that they are answered. That is different.
Thank you. So you're basically saying your amendment is to C rather than A. Well, B and C.
Well, the recommendations of the scrutiny officer are contained within the report. If you agree the report as at recommendation A, then you are accepting all recommendations within that report. And I am saying that I am proposing an amendment that does not do that.
Right. I suggest that we adjourn for 5 minutes to just get some clarity on that. I'll get Councillor Highfield in and then we'll adjourn.
Yes, that on the screen is not what Councillor Harvey is proposing. That is
No, so
a
that's-
qualification to what is already in the scrutiny
Yeah.
officer's report. So I don't think that's the amendment that we
so
should be voting on.
That's why I'm suggesting there is an adjournment to get clarity on that. There's another amendment as well regarding the 5 to 4 as well, which is pretty straightforward, but we need to get clarity on this one as well. Agreed? Right. We'll adjourn for 5 minutes. So if you can stop recording, please. Thank you very much. I think that's been a positive adjournment. Can I now have the amendments, please, up on this? Well, mine's on. Oh, now it is. Can I now have the amendments, please, up on the screen?
Yeah, just takes a second, it's all right.
Well,
Patience, patience.
we're... Yeah. Well, I'm going to take these as two separate amendments, but that will make more sense when you actually see what's up on the screen. New technology is lightning speed.
Saves so much time.
Does. So we have two amendments. The first is that the council proposes a reduction in the number of scrutiny committees from 5 to 4, which I think is everyone would relatively clearly understand, and that will be the first vote that I take. And second is B. We just the public questions are focused on agenda items under consideration by the committee meeting to which they are submitted. Does everyone understand that? Agreed. Councillor Harvey.
Apologies, just to make it transparently clear, at present there are 3 recommendations under the section to do with public questions. I'm proposing that the Amendment B replaces all 3 of those. So there is only that change and not the 6-month rule being reintroduced and not the proposal on the because the other 2 fall away with this as an amendment.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I don't think that was the amendment as proposed.
No. Can I make the point to remind all of you that in the Constitution it does say that you should submit any amendments to any of the agenda items by 9:30 in the morning. On this occasion, I decided to take the amendment. I think a history I will learn from this is that perhaps I won't in future. So the amendments are there as before you. That's what we've adjourned on. And I'm going to take the vote, first of all, on A. So let's be quite clear. I need 8 people to stand in order to have a name vote. It won't be a name vote. Right. Now, you are now voting on A, which the Council proposes a reduction in the number of scrutiny committees from 5 to 4. All those in favour of the amendment? Okay. All those against? That's a majority against. That amendment has failed. We'll now move on to B, that the public questions are focused on agenda items under the consideration by the committee meeting to which they are submitted. All those in favour of the amendment? Okay. All those against? That is defeated by a majority. Very well. We'll now move to the substantive recommendations that were outlined before you. I will now propose those. I had previously proposed those. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? That's been passed by majority. Thank you. Now, we now adjourn for a short while because now we have confirmed that there are to be 5 scrutiny committees. We now need to confirm the chair and vice chairs of all those committees, and I will ask that the group leaders see to that in the adjournment that we had anticipated. So we'll adjourn for a period of, I'm looking at my group leaders now, 10 minutes? Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. We now come to agenda item 9, which is the appointment to council committees and outside bodies. Can you turn to page 12 on your council agenda? Well, it's my page 12. Hopefully you've got something similar, which lists out the recommendations, which are A to G. You've also been given a supplementary piece of paper which outlines the number of seats that are on committees. There is, of course, we will deal with at item B on the number of seats and how they're allocated, because there is an additional seat to allocate, and you can see we have at the moment 2 proposals at the bottom of that block, which we will then consider and vote on. Items C and D are fairly straightforward. Item E, I would remind you all, as I do every year, that we suspend the rules of proportionality in respects of the Standards Panel, the Lug Drainage Board and the Wye Valley National Landscape Advisory Committee, on the basis that it's sensible to put have more flexibility there rather than political proportionality, and we've done that ever since we've been in existence. F, I will then read out the proposed chair and vice chairs of our various committees, and then G is at the bottom of the page that's just been given you, which is how the makeup of the Scrutiny Management Board is done. So that's an introduction of what we're going to deal with at this meeting. I hope everybody's clear, and we'll go through that. So I'm going to move the first recommendation, which is the list of the ordinary committees as listed in paragraph 10 to be confirmed with their terms of reference as set out in the Council's constitution. Is all that, can I have a seconder for that? Yes, Councillor Durkin. Are you all agreed with this regards to agenda item A of the recommendations? All those in favour? Thank you. I think that's a majority decision. Nobody against? Pretty straightforward. Oh, Councillor Harvey is against. Then we'll move then to the next recommendation, which is item B. Now, on this, we return to the paper that's been put before you. There is now an additional seat that means to move from the Conservative group, and there are 2 proposals as to where this seat should go. The leaders have discussed it, and it's now, of course, going to be a decision for us as a council. The first proposal is for the Conservative seat to go to ENS scrutiny to a non-aligned member, and the second proposal is that it should go to the Independents for Herefordshire group. Can I have a proposer for the first proposal, please?
Yes, Chair, I'll propose the first proposal.
And anybody to second? Councillor Hercombe. The second proposal that seat goes to the Independents for Herefordshire, proposed by Councillor Toynbee, seconded by Councillor Woodall. Okay. Councillor Harvey.
Chair, can I just ask for a point of clarification? The way you read out proposal 1 differs from the wording that is in front of us. You said that the Conservative seat on the ENS scrutiny go to a non-aligned member, and the wording in front of us says to non-aligned members. Could we please have some clarification as to whether the seat will be taken by a named member, or whether it's a free-for-all, meeting by meeting, as to whether any or all of the non-aligned members turn up with the intention of occupying that seat?
Councillor Kenyon, before I reply.
I don't talk for the unaligned, but I am unaligned. I have been for many years, and I take a bit of umbrage for that. If we are given a position on, let's say we, I certainly, and I don't speak for the other 2, they can speak for themselves. If I'm given a position on scrutiny, I'll do my damnedest to make sure it's fulfilled and done correctly.
Just to be clear, I'm not questioning whether the non-aligned members would turn up. I'm asking for clarity on the leader's proposal as to whether it goes to they agree amongst themselves that one of the non-aligned members is given that seat, or whether it's open committee meeting by meeting as to which non-aligned member might turn up and attend.
Monitoring officer.
My advice is that it goes to the three unaligned members, and those three unaligned members would come together and decide which person, and they would tell us which person it is. If they can't come to an agreement, then it would have to come back to the next council, and it would have to start. You'd have to consider it again, council, if the three of them can't decide which one it is. But we do need the three of them to decide which one it is.
Is that? I'm looking at the non-aligned members. I think that's clarity, isn't it? Is there anything else you want to add to that? Councillor Mason.
Well, as a newly non-aligned member, it seems to me not only is this suggestion proportional, but also, of course, when we were talking about proportionality in the previous debate, we were talking about expertise. So it seems to me quite helpful for there to be the sort of ability for us to be able to work out which of us would be most appropriate for the issues being debated. It seems to be potentially the best of both worlds.
Councillor Kenyon, and then I'll move on.
Thank you, Chairman. I find Councillor Harvey hypocritical because weren't there two leaders of the independents of Herefordshire? You never knew which one you got coming along. So for her to spout off as she has earlier, I just find completely hypocritical.
Councillor Kenyon, there are two very clearly defined independent groups that are there in the Constitution. Now look, we're going to have to move to discussion on which option you want. Can we be quite clear? We've now established how this proposal one is done. The three of them work out who is the representative, and if they don't turn up at the meetings, well, they've got to sort that out amongst themselves. If they can't agree, it'll come back to us to agree again and make an appointment. Okay. Are you content that I go then to the discussions on the two proposals? Right, okay. Yep.
Just a point of clarity, could you walk me through the maths of how we get to the final numbers per political group? Because by my maths, for Conservatives, it should be 21, which would actually leave 2 spare, and to save a debate, they can have one each.
My understanding is that the group leaders have dealt with this, and this is what's come back as the proposal. So the group leaders have signed this off, but obviously they didn't in total agreement. They've come back with these two proposals, and that is what we as a council meeting are deciding today.
And is that mathematically proportional?
Yes. That's from the monitoring officer. Okay?
Could I see the maths on that, please?
They will be sent you after the meeting.
Okay.
Right. I've got two proposals there before you, and now I will now institute a discussion. Has anyone got anything to say on either of the proposals? Councillor Hurcombe, Councillor Harvey, Councillor Toynbee. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say it makes sense for the non-aligned members to have a seat on scrutiny. It represents 5% of the council, roughly speaking. And as we were talking about earlier, it's about expertise and contributing to scrutiny.
Next, I forgot who I put down as next. Councillor Harvey.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think we still have a confusion here. From the comment that was made by Councillor Mason just now, it sounded very much like from one meeting to another, there may be a different non-aligned member who turns up to occupy that seat on that particular committee meeting. And yet we have the monitoring officer saying that it is for the non-aligned members to decide who is to occupy that seat, and that she will be notified as to which member that is. And that sounded like a once and for all appointment for the coming year.
And that is what it is. The non-aligned members, and I thought I had reiterated it, will have to appoint one of those three onto that committee for the next 12 months. And that will, and they will report that to the monitoring officer, and they will become members of the committee. Councillor Proctor, Councillor Highfield.
I'm now struggling to understand the difference between a political group and members who are not part of a political group, because we seem to be treating the non-aligned members, who are perfectly, there are three of them, they're perfectly entitled to form a political group. We now seem to be treating them in the same way as a political group. And would it not be simpler to treat members who join political groups should be treated as members of a political group, and those that don't shouldn't be.
Monitoring officer.
They are not being treated as a political group. What has happened here is there is one seat available to the whole council, and therefore the group leaders, well, two of them have come up with these proposals. It could be that you as a group, as a council, want to say, no, we just want this particular member. It's up to you, but these are the only, this particular seat cannot be allocated to any particular group based on the present proportionality. It's open to the whole council. So the two proposals from two group leaders are suggesting these two proposals. There could be a third, a fourth, a fifth suggestion. I'm not saying that that would be helpful to you, but these are the two proposals and they are perfectly lawful, but you as a council need to decide which proposal you prefer.
Councillor Highfield.
Yes, those three non-aligned people are gentlemen. If one of them is the nominee for the seat, if one of the others has a burning desire to be on a particular meeting, we have alternates that can be nominated for a scrutiny committee if somebody doesn't want to attend it or can't attend it. So there would still be the option for one of the others to attend a particular meeting, even though one particular person is identified as the normal member.
Monitoring officer. I'm not going to answer that.
That is a very interesting constitutional question with regard to substitutes, because that is left to the political groups. I think I would have to probably consider this outside of the meeting. At the moment, it can go to the unaligned. They would have to present one member, and that member will be one councillor rather, and that councillor will be the councillor on that committee. I would have to come back with further advice on if they were in a position to present a substitute out of the unaligned.
I'm going to bring in Councillor Kenyon before I go back to Councillor Toynbee. Councillor Kenyon.
Having been the most long-standing ungrouped councillor on here, many years, I find it the group is perhaps, we're very much ungrouped but not unloved. We all get on, we're all sensible, and why can't we decide and job share the job that we're being offered? That would be I'm not the spokesman for these two guys. They've got their own voices, as I said before. But between the three of us, I think we'd be a fantastic addition to any committee.
The proposal before you is that there is a seat that needs to be reallocated. There are two proposals. One suggests that it could go to one of you on the non-aligned group, and the other is that it goes to Independents for Herefordshire. That is the offer that's on the table, and that is what council will be voting on. When it is voted on, particularly if it goes with proposal one, you will be subject to the constitutional arrangements, some of which may need clarifying as we've started on. Is everybody quite clear on what they're voting for? Councillor Toynbee.
Thank you. Yes, that clarity was very necessary, wasn't it? I'm not, in principle, against ungrouped members being on committees. Far from it. But this has been, as we've just seen, a very messy process. Not everybody has been clear. Is this something that was, they're not a group, but, you know, are they going to job share? Are they proposing that they decide amongst themselves? Are we going to nominate? It hasn't been clear enough, and I think that's evidence that this hasn't been well thought through, and it gives me doubts about how effective proposal one would be. So I'm proposing proposal two. Since the Conservatives have lost one of their members, I'm proposing that this seat, as per proposal two, is offered to the Independents for Herefordshire. As we can see from our table, at the moment there isn't an independent member on Environment and Scrutiny Committee, and I'm very confident that adding one would add to the strength of the work of the committee. I'm not in favour of the seat going to a group of members. It's just been clarified that that's not how it would work, and certainly you know, we have to take that as said, but that sort of ad hoc arrangement, which I was told until a few minutes ago was going to be it, certainly wouldn't work. But anyway, given what we now do have clarity on, we do need scrutiny to be as strong as possible, and we need committee members to be named individuals who are fully committed to the committee, and I think we've seen that with independents in other committees. You have to be fully committed, not just to the meetings, to the pre-meetings, to the team building, to all the work that takes place between meetings. And I recommend that the seat goes to Independence for Herefordshire, because I think they would do an effective job. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got council. Yeah, we're in debate now, so we're going to you're all going to be timed. I've got Councillor Gandy, and is there anybody else who wants to speak on this subject before we go to this vote?
I'll speak, Chair.
Who's that? Oh, okay. The leader. Sorry, Councillor Gandy.
Thank you, Chair. Having experienced this situation in a previous life, where we have had non-aligned members, the council is perfectly at liberty to appoint a non-aligned member, and in general, councils do, and it's usually from and it's a controlling group that, or minority controlling group, who have to give up the place. They are not a group, and therefore, in my eyes, and as far as I know, I suspect the Constitution will say that as they are not a group, they cannot appoint a substitute. They will have to appoint they can appoint a representative, but if that representative cannot attend, because they are not a group, they cannot appoint a substitute, because they are what they are. They are completely separate individuals on their own.
Councillor Lester, and then Councillor James, and then I'll move to the vote.
Thank you, Chairman. It's unfortunate that the group leaders couldn't agree this amongst themselves. And so therefore, because the group leaders couldn't agree, best thing to do, put it to the full council. So let's take a vote on it.
Councillor James.
Thank you, Chairman. I understand the problem with unaligned the group, but I think we need to look at the Constitution actually, because we could have quite a number of unaligned in the future, and if they, as of now, they have no seat at all on anything. There may be reasons for that, I don't know, but there ought to be a mechanism. I mean, when one says a group, it doesn't mean necessarily they are politically aligned. A group can be, well, we've had it before, where a group was not politically aligned. It was just a group for the purpose of the function of the council.
Very well. Look, I'm now going to put this. So we're dealing with recommendation B. You're all very clear. You're voting either for the blue proposal or the red proposal. So can I ask for those who support the blue proposal to raise their hand, please? Got your numbers? Okay. And those who support the red proposal? And the Vice Chair. And the Vice Chair. Okay. Can I ask what the numbers were? Any abstentions? Were there any abstentions? There was one. Two. One non-aligned and one other.
What are the numbers? 33 for, 14 against, and
two abstentions. So that's 33 for the blue proposal, 14 for the red proposal, and two abstentions. That means that the extra seat now goes to the non-aligned members, and we'll get some clarity on exactly what that is. I think we have established that clarity, but that nobody's in any doubt. That will be sent to you all. Agreed? Agreed. Right, let's return to the list of recommendations. We now go to C, which is the allocation of seats on outside bodies to political groups as set out in paragraph 13. I assume that everyone is content with this. All those in favour say yes. Agreed? Yes. Agreed. Any against? No. That's passed. Item D is the appointment of the 5 co-opted members of the Children's and Young People's Scrutiny Committee be approved as outlined in the report. All those in favour agree? Yes. Agree. Any against? No, that is passed. Item E, this is important. We do need to ensure, we're going to suspend proportionality, as I pointed out. So you can vote, you can abstain, but if you vote against it, then we have to bring back in proportionality, which, and as I said, particularly with regard to Lug Drainage and Wye Valley Landscape Advisory Committee, this is based on location rather than on political proportionality. So are you content to suspend the rules for proportionality in respect of those committees? Agreed? Agreed. Are there any against? No, thank you. Any abstention? No, so that's passed. We now go to the list of the appointment of chairpersons and vice chairpersons, and this is what I have been given by the group leaders. So I will read out the names to you. The Children's and Young People's Scrutiny Committee will be chaired by Councillor Fagan, and the vice chairman will be Councillor Proctor. The Connected Communities Scrutiny Committee, the chairperson will be Councillor Driscoll, and the vice chairman will be Councillor Cornwait. The Environment and Sustainability Scrutiny Committee will be Councillor Stark, with Councillor Pemberley as vice chairman. The Healthcare and Wellbeing Scrutiny will be chaired by Councillor Crockett, and the vice chair will be Councillor Tillett. With regard to the Scrutiny Management Board, the chair will be Councillor Proctor, and the vice chair will be Councillor Stark. On the Audits and Governance Committee, the chair will be Councillor Hitchener, the vice chairman Councillor Woodall. On the Employment Panel, Councillor Lester will be chair and Councillor Toynbee will be vice chair. On Planning and Regulatory, Councillor James will be chair and Councillor Claire Davis will be vice chair. And on the Licensing Committee, it will be Councillor Andrews. Is everybody clear? Those are the positions we are voting should be chair and vice chair of all those committees. All those in favour? I think that's unanimous. Are there any against or abstaining? Yes, that's unanimous. Thank you for that. We then move on to item G, which is at the bottom of the page that was distributed to you, which allocates the seats to the Scrutiny Management Board. They are outlined as before. Are you all in agreement with that list at the bottom of the page? Agreed? Aye. Any against? No. Very well, that completes those recommendations. Ladies, yes, Councillor Toynbee.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just a point on item F. Could you just clarify that this was not a recommendation from group leaders? It's something that, group leaders discussed, but it's something that, the committee chairpersons and vice chairpersons is something for the council as a whole to make recommendations and vote on. And this wasn't a recommendation from group leaders.
Right. Well, anyway, we passed it. Whoever recommended it. You cast your eye on it. Yeah. Yes.
Yes, which isn't the same thing.
Isn't it? No. Right. You had your paws on it. I'll leave it at that. Okay. Moving on then, that completes the business of the annual council meeting. Can I remind members in future that if you have any amendments to any of the proposals on the meetings, agenda items, that those amendments should be in by 9:30. One thing I've learned from this outfit today is that I will not be accepting amendments on the day at the meeting. The date of the next meeting is the 25th of July at 10 o'clock. Can I thank you all for your attendance? Can I ask that the live stream should be stopped, please?